Welcome, fellow travelers, to Never Ending Adventure Podcasts. I'm Russell Tyndall, and with me, as always,
DJ Netty P.
Netty P. Ned, I'm not moving a lot this week. And by this week, I really mean today. As of about 10 minutes ago, I didn't tell you this. We've been talking a little bit, catching up before this talk, but I went on a run, and about halfway through it, I was probably a mile and a half out. I felt my back give in, so I think I pulled something in my back, and I literally had to walk a mile and a half back, and every step I was in a lot of pain. So I'm going to be as still as possible for this podcast.
Still, like the episode we're talking about?
Maybe like the episode we're talking about. If you hear me wince here and there, it's because I'm in pain, and it's all I could do to sit up straight and talk on the microphone right now.
So you really do.
Yeah, we're talking about still.
The freezing potion and still would be more of a prescription for you right now than an ailment.
I would love it. I would love it. Allie's father was like, "I've got a prescription like back pain thingamajig you put on your back," and I was like, "Oh, maybe."
Oh,
literally, I am in so much pain right
grade icy hot patches or something.
Yeah, I guess, dude. I don't really know. I almost took him up on the offer, but I was like trying to be like, "No, I'm good, man. It's all good. It doesn't hurt that bad." I'm in a decent amount of pain right now, but we'll see how it goes.
hopefully, it's just a tweak to like rest it up and maybe take a couple of days off from extraneous exercise.
Well, similarly to me. We have two of our main characters being rather still this episode. It's not their fault. We're talking about Adventure Time, Season 3, Episode 7, Still, where Ice King is the cause of their stillness.
I know. I mean, I will state it every time it happens. I love me a good treehouse episode. I really do.
Man, I was so curious about what you were going to think about this episode, because I know you love treehouse episodes, as you just said, but I don't know how I feel about this one. It's not really my episode.
I appreciate this one, and it's more of we've had a couple of ones in season 3 so far, because we're only on episode 7, but a couple of kind of vibey ones with season 3 where they don't like hit it for me, they don't hit the mark, and this one just feels very Adventure Timey. We're back to like a Finn and Jake protagonist episode. It's Finn and Jake and Ice King, and that kind of just by season 3 when we don't have the whole expanded universe yet, it feels like it's back to its roots. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I can get with that. It almost does feel like a season 1 episode.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. I do like
it's
a lot
fun
of season
when you don't
1
get
was
to
very lighthearted to me.
Yeah, lighthearted, and it's not necessarily like time stamped. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. This could have been anywhere. I can't say
there's only one thing that does timestamp this episode, and I thought it was. I didn't catch it until I read a lot on the episode. The very end when they, we're skipping right to the end, but the silver sword that they kind of bonk Ice King on the head with is the sword they used in the Gladiator episode. I'm not even going to try to do the Latin for it again, but
is it cool?
So I think that's the sword. I guess Finn kind of took some loot with him from the Gladiator arena.
Nice. That's my tops. Is that moment?
Oh, really?
The butterflies carried the sword. It's so funny. He goes, Finn, Jake, a bunch of butterflies, a sword. It's so like Doofenshmirtz from
Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb.
Yes, yeah. A platypus. Perry the platypus.
The butterfly. Yeah, man, I can't believe we've never referenced that on this show, but
I don't know. Yeah, he doesn't always come off as that. That's not the same voice actor, I'm sure. Oh no, of course it's not, because the voice actor for him is the guy who created Phineas and Ferb, which is definitely not the Ice King. So,
no. King isn't Ice King SpongeBob? Is that? Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah. I'll look that up again. I need to know that.
It's been a minute. We haven't looked up the voice actors for the main characters in a little while. But Ned, I did want to ask you a question before we got too deep into this episode. Well, what's my favorite color?
Oh, your favorite color? I'm pretty sure it's red.
You don't love me. You don't love me. Come on,
man.
It's
such a loaded question. Come on, man. Jake, like literally, I could know so much about a person.
Like Jake, I know that sometimes you don't cry because you're afraid of real emotions. It's okay.
It's okay. We have talked about that on the podcast. I can say,
I know, it was so perfect. It was so perfect for this podcast.
Oh my gosh! Can I start this? Can we go a little off our typical program here and start with Rex, because that fits into this this segment here?
Sure. What's your rec?
Well, I watched a movie this week and like just was crying so hard. Me and Jackie both crying. So we watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it was...
Is it good? I haven't seen it.
So good. So deep. I mean, honestly, I read reviews on it. It's probably one of the best multiverse movies ever made.
Is it really?
Yeah, and it's got a lot. It's like multiverse. It's crazy. It's the ADHD's person's favorite movie in the world because it's just so much going on. But I mean, it gets really deep into multiverse concepts and what that would, in theory, kind of be like, like almost realistically, scientifically be like. But there's like just really good kind of like family value lessons at the very end, how she reconnects with her husband. So absolutely, my recommendation is go watch that movie.
What's it on? What's it on right now?
I think, we paid for it because we meant to see it in the theaters and we didn't. So we were like, we can front $20 on Amazon Prime for it because we would have purchased theater seats for it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if it's that dang good, maybe I need to watch it.
I mean, it definitely had me crying like hard at one scene.
Yeah. My rec for this week is get yourself a plant. I think everybody needs a plant.
Everybody needs a plant?
Yeah, man.
We got lots of plants.
Well, like, get yourself a special plant. I got a special plant. It's a baby Japanese maple tree from my grandma's house that was growing underneath her maple tree.
That's awesome.
We dug it out of the ground, put it in a pot with some dirt, and I've been battling to keep it alive. I do not have a green thumb, but it
sounds like that's kind of a tree that would probably have some very finicky conditions to grow in anyway.
It's probably been a lot of stress, and I think I just didn't realize how often you got to water those things. So I'm working on it. It's looking better. It's got a whole bunch of leaves that are slowly growing. I mean, it's like 3 inches tall. It's tiny,
Yeah.
So it's in a very important phase of its life, and I don't have a name for it. I'm looking for a name. I think viewers or listeners of the podcast know that I have a lucky bamboo tree that I am slowly fathering. That means a lot to me, that I named after what I thought was the Japanese word for plant, but actually is not the Japanese word for plant. So it just has a random name.
Tradition.
As is tradition. But anyways, let's get back on this.
Yeah,
this
back in. I had to get my rec early because we talked about me never crying. So I had to show that I do have emotions, guys.
Man, something that sticks out to me so much in this episode is how often we see Ice King's like stomach and desire to like show us full frontal. And I don't need that from Ice King. Man, he does it with the bottle. He tucks in the bottle like right in the front of his pants. And then he also is like stripping for Jake when he's like, oh, we got to look like each other. And that's how we'll bond.
He's about to take his clothes off. And Jake's like, no.
I mean, as we mentioned before, technically Jake is wearing a very thin
silk spider. It spider webs spun by pixies or something? Pants.
Yeah, so technically he's not nude.
Yes.
But to the blind eye, he's nude. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that you bring up that scene first, because that scene hit me hard, man, when he's like, what's your favorite color? Or what's my favorite color? And I, like I said, I do think that's a loaded question anyway. I hate how
terrible
that's like
question.
That's our cultural acceptance for like, you know me so well, like what's my birthday and favorite color? I'm like, those are pretty objective things.
Is rough.
I'd rather people know way more subjective things about me, or about my personality or how I behave, rather than like, how do I take my cereal in the morning or something, something stupid.
My favorite color is blue, in case you were curious.
Okay, mine's blue too. That's why we vibe.
Easy. Yeah, that's why we vibe. I think, truthfully, like the whole I'm a Scorpio type thing and you're Not a
also
Scorpio?
a Scorpio.
I don't know. Are you also
I
a
am.
Scorpio? Okay.
I don't know. I don't do any of that stuff, but I know.
I was about to have a theory about. It's all about what your favorite color is, but we also share the same sign, so never mind. I'll scratch that.
Yeah, actually, so the funny thing about this podcast is it's actually not two guys. It's just Russell using two different voices. It's just him talking with himself.
And whenever I'm talking over myself, I'm going back and re-recording. It's very painstaking, and that's why, like, I'm always begging for, like, let's get this podcast going so I don't have to pay, like, my producer, who is also me, technically. I'm the one on social media.
The most productive, the most productive anyone can be with multiple personality disorder, right?
Yeah, you start a podcast. God.
Start a podcast with yourself.
Oh man, in this economy, Ned.
In this economy, again. Oh man, that was like I had a few runner-up tops moments of this episode when he locks the bottles and he's like, "In this economy." I thought that was just like there's so many nods to kind of like adult humor in this episode. That was one of them when he's like, "You guys are princess blocking me." I was like, that's such a funny, like, just over the top kid, like not a kid's joke.
He's tried to kill them. It's because their princess blocking them. I get it.
Your princess blocking me.
Oh man,
and then just like, oh man, when he's like, part of me is going to be inside of you. Like it's just kind of these like creepy little like adult jokes thrown in there.
Yeah, I know, man. But it's funny. I mean, what I've found is I really do enjoy Ice King and Gunter's relationship. In this episode, you see it a lot, how they interact. And Gunter will do something, I'll get on Ice King's nerves and I'll yell at him. And then Gunter will kind of do the puppy dog eyes, kind of be cute for just a half second. And immediately Ice King's just like, oh, I can't stay mad at you. Like, you're just too cute, like.
It's so much like my relationship with my dog, though. I'm like, stop being a little shit. And then he just turns around and looks at me and I'm like, dang it, you're too cute. I can't.
Yeah.
Just sit down.
It's funny. We don't really understand, or I don't really understand the relationship Ice King has with penguins. He has so many penguins. I don't know why he chose that to be his.
Is that his astral beast?
Oh, you think so? No,
I don't know. It is something to where like his Ice Kingness probably brings in some sort of like psychological connection with penguins because he talks to them all the time. They understand him, I'm convinced that Gunter, like, I had that theory forever ago that the pressure points, the deadly pressure points, is what's keeping Gunter like under his control. Maybe there's something with the crown. I don't know, man. Like, maybe if Gunter got the crown on his head, then his true form. Who knows? Well, everybody else in the podcast listening knows. I just don't know. Yeah. I was going to say, I can't spoil too much. So guys out there that are big fans, like, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about Org. We can't do that this episode, but we will in the future. But I can say that you really do begin to see that Gunter is this agent of chaos. And for sure in this episode, he's just
puts up with a lot. But yeah, he is an agent of chaos.
Agent of chaos, like to the extreme, to Ice King and to Ice King's detriment, to Finn and Jake's detriment. He's just like wants to cause chaos.
Yeah, it was so funny. The key when Ice King was doing his presentation, and the key's on the ground, and he's just kind of slowly getting closer and closer to it, and you could just see Jake like, "Come on, get it, man." That had me cracking up. That was
and then he just turns around and then starts like flapping Jake's jows.
He's like, "Stop bonding without me." Ice King,
was a good one.
What a fool, man.
I know. Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, what your Gunter thoughts were. So I'm glad that you kind of brought it up on your own as well. Because I was like, that's a big part. We've seen a little bit of Gunter. We've seen Gunter have a psychedelic cat baby. He's had some episodes, but we get a little bit more like Gunter personality.
What happened to that? One. What happened to that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Does it never come back?
No, it doesn't come back. I would assume that it's either just now floating around astral planes or going around ethers, or that Princess Bubblegum's got it like locked up as a science experiment. That would be my other theoretical on Gunter's baby.
Well, all right, let's get to my theoretically speaking, because we've kind of touched on a little bit with the Astro Beast.
Theoretically speaking.
Finn for whatever reason, summons a bunch of butterflies, which is such a wonderful moment in this episode where he's like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but it sounded pretty like intimidating. And then you just see all the butterflies show up on the fin, and then one goes to Jake. And then that realization of like Jake being like, you summon butterflies.
You summon butterflies. Like, I do say, I'll let you get to your theoretically speaking, but as we are at this moment, that's my tops of the episode when Finn just wakes up, all the music cuts out, and he goes, the astral beast cometh. Like
so fair. Well, my theoretically speaking is that I believe there is a reason he summoned the butterflies. I think there's a reason. Instead of some monstrous apex predator came to help them, I think the butterflies are significant in some way. I'm sure he has some connection with butterflies, or perhaps it's like his spirit animal. I can only hope, though, that he finds like a giant butterfly and he befriends it, or like Naruto, he develops some sort of a sage mode and becomes more powerful instead of like the toad sage mode that Naruto does. It's butterflies. One exception to this, theoretically speaking, is the other tart butterfly with the laser gun.
Yes, that's. I think that guy just lives in the desert as a butterfly bandit. But
yeah,
I can say this has been probably, of all of our 63 episodes, this has been my favorite theoretically speaking that you've brought up, because you are 100. Yes. You are 100% correct.
Am I?
Yes, what? You are. And you know,
how's he? Is it like a spirit animal, or is it? Do
you want me to? Like, it's not a major spoiler drop, you know, because it probably means nothing to you.
I want it because I want the reward of hearing that I'm correct. But if anyone doesn't want to hear it, skip forward 15 seconds or something.
Yeah, skip forward about 45 seconds here, and you don't want to hear it. This is a spoiler drop.
Spoiler drop.
So later on in season 3, we do have this moment where Finn connects with a different, you know, almost like ghostly like being. Well, it's in the Haunted Mansion episode. That brings up a new topic of Finnism, a new kind of like Finn canon, that there has been multiple reincarnations of Finn and the Finn essence. And in one of his reincarnations, it's not explained. It's more like mentioned in passing several times, but Finn was a butterfly in a past life.
Oh, wow.
And so
that's butterfly, nothing like special
just a straight up butterfly in a past life.
So
it's not like there's not a whole episode on it. There's not like a deep explanation. It's more just like a lot of moments in later Adventure Time when Finn's like kind of has learned that he's had these past lives. It just kind of flashes between some of the different things he's been, and one of them is a butterfly. So that's why I was like, dude, you're theoretically speaking is spot on here.
Heck yeah. Sorry, I'm being a little quiet. As I pulled back just then, my back just sent a jolt of pain through me. But that is super sick, man. I love that. I finally hit one.
I know. It's so nice for me not to have to rip your theoretically speaking to shreds.
I'm in so much pain.
Yeah, you're becoming enough of an Adventure Time fan where your theoretically speakings will begin to align with exactly what the show's going for. Okay. So this is like a good, exciting moment in the podcast.
Man, well, I think that's a good enough note for me to go to a commercial. If you're cool with that,
take a breather. sit on your big win right there.
Yeah. All right. We'll see y'all in a second.
Come one, come all to the Ice King Gallery Exposition, showcasing Ice King's most prolific period of innovative penguin stylings, known largely for self-revelation via the expansion of perception given to the anatomy of penguins. Praised as poignant and charming, Ice King successfully captures the essence of humanity and his muses. Gunter's energy has never been so palpable as seen before. Also, we have a little cheese, a little cider, maybe a veggie plate. Could be nice. Oh man, welcome back.
Yes, welcome. Welcome everybody.
The Astral Beast. The Astral Beast cometh. I just love like the Finn whispers, and he's like, even at the beginning when he's like, Astral Beast, come to me. And he's just kind of whispering, but
he's rolling around in the astral plane. It was so colorful. It was almost my tops, but then I had to not have it be my tops because the sword moment was so much funnier.
Yeah, I would say it's that was my runner-up tops. Outside from what was my other top? I had like 3 tops this episode.
Oh
but
my gosh!
I would say now on that topic, my lovely is Astral Plane Finn.
Give me some sugar, baby.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
Kind of like floating around. He's in this full white suit, and then him spinning, and he's just like, "Wee, Astral Beast." I love
the
that
idea,
moment.
though. Even just the idea of Finn and Jake's other senses being enhanced. Because if they didn't do that in this episode, I don't really know if this would be a good episode.
Yeah,
I think this episode is saved by the astral plane and by the astral beasts.
Yeah,
and maybe
it was
a little
more,
bit Ice King and Gunter's relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it had like the little kind of like A story, B story that a lot of the Adventure Time episodes do. So like B story was like Finn in the astral plane.
They were just both kind of weak in my opinion. But again, that's just how I feel about this episode. But I do like the Finn and Jake both going Daredevil, and all of a sudden their other senses are heightened. I mean, I can tell right now I'm being very still, and my sense of pain is heightened. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, have you ever tried like meditating, but like not even astral projection, but on the simplistic side of things like meditation?
Oh, for sure. I mean, to a degree, coming from a Christian background, and for whatever reason, somewhere along the way, my dad gave me a book. It's a Chuck Norris written book about the art of Zen. And so I read The Art of Zen, and meditation is a big part of that. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past on this podcast, I believe. But essentially, I was like, oh, this is really great. What I can do is I can take elements of this and apply it to how I go about my relationship with God. And so meditating was a part of that.
I don't think that there's, excuse me, I don't think that there's like meditation is inherently anti-Christian or anything like that.
I'm not trying to say that. It's just not something that the Bible talks, to my knowledge, a lot about meditating. Isn't really something that's prevalent in Christianity. And so it was just something where I took that from an outside source and I was like, I can apply. And I think that goes for any religion, even if it's not your religion. There's certain elements from, be it Judaism, Christianity, Islam, whatever, where you could take elements of that and go, oh, to whatever my personal beliefs are, I can apply these things. And meditation was just an example of one that I did with Buddhism.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then I kind of saw, like, in thinking about meditation, and when I've tried it in the past, not very successfully, I know a lot of the times it's all about introspection, and it's kind of like, feel the room where you're at, feel your body, feel the weight of your arms. It's all like introspective, looking inward. But then Finn's kind of like meditative position here is a real like meditation to connect with the greater astral plane, the greater universal powers. And it's like, I guess that maybe that's 2 sides of the same coin with like a meditative aspect is, are you doing this for your own introspection to get more closely grounded with yourself and with your surroundings, or are you meditating to connect with some sort of astral universal plane?
It's definitely not a topic I know much about, but I do feel like when I'm meditating, whenever that is, how often, not very often, but I sit there and I try and be completely silent, and listening is something that I'm trying to do more so. Whereas Finn in this episode, he's taking his astral projecting or whatever,
he's shutting out
seeking
the immediate
he's
world.
seeking a beast. Yeah, he's shutting everything out, but he's there looking and searching for a thing to save them. Versus me, where I'm like, I'm just going to be as quiet as I can get my mind to be, and then I don't have a mission or anything like that. I'm just sitting here and I'm listening, and even trying to ignore everything around me and be in a different state almost.
Yeah, like we'll be at oneness like with yourself and with your like immediate like carpet around you. It's like what that kind of aspect of it's supposed to be. But I don't know. Send us your notes on meditation. Obviously, we are, super amateurs on the topic and the practice.
I know nothing about it.
I don't know. Maybe we can meditate on Adventure Time and and get more deep thoughts out of this for sure.
Something I do know a lot about though is a good late night gab session. pillow
man.
talk.
I love how he just reverted straight to middle school girl in the
Did he?
gab
Yeah, he kind
sesh.
of did. I mean, dude, freaking, it really is like the best bonding experience. I always kind of felt jealous of like friends of mine in college that had roommates that were buddies of ours that we were close to, because I knew they were having late night gab sessions, just chatting it up. And it's such a good bonding experience. I mean, I had a roommate freshman year of college that I really didn't spend a lot of time with, but I felt close to him because we would have these conversations late at night in our dorm room, no one else there, just me and him chatting. And, you know, we talked about everything. We talked about our family. We talked about like religion, and he came from India, you know, and I mean, just such a cool moment where we had so little in common and we did so little together. And at the same time, like we bonded so deeply just from that late night pillow talks. And it's kind of a shame that Ice King is having to force that on Finn and Jake.
Yeah, he desires it. I mean, that's the big thing is like he desires that
Jake don't.
connection. They don't, yeah.
It's not
because they already
like,
have it, you know?
Yeah, with each other.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing, though. It is cool that Jake is not being ignored. That's something that I took away from this episode, because in almost every other episode, it feels like to me that the main characters of Adventure Time, Princess Bubblegum, any princess that's obsessed with Finn, like they're all
like Jake takes a back
Jake.
seat.
He takes a back seat, and in this, you really can tell that Ice King went out of his way, and for most of the episode, because Finn was off in, you know, his own world, the astral plane. Jake was the one that he was trying to bond with. Jake was the one that he was like hanging out with for the most part.
Yeah, we get to see
I kind of like
Jake
that.
take a little bit more of a front seat in an episode.
Yeah, he like wanted to be buds with Jake too, not just Finn. It feels like Ice King's friendship with him is pretty equal for the most part.
Yeah. I think. Well, he always. I think he wants to be like part of a triumvirate of the three of them. You know. Yeah. And that is Jake included.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I love the gab session. We just called it pillow talk with all my buddies. We would just be like, it's pillow talk time.
Yeah, gab session does sound a little bit like your middle school girl, like gossiping type thing.
Yeah, well, he with his little wrist thing when he's like, ooh, when you have a crush on somebody, like,
oh, that's right. I thought it was talk about that.
I did think it was funny that at the beginning of the episode, he was like, I know, Jake, sometimes you don't cry because you're afraid to express emotion. But then he reverts back to like, do you have a girlfriend? And Jake's like, obviously, it's Lady Rainicorn. It's like, how did Ice King not know that? But he knew all about like Finn's favorite foods and Jake's deep thoughts and stuff like that. But he didn't know that Jake had a girlfriend when her picture was like XOXO right next to him in the bed.
And then he tries to admit that he has a crush on Princess Bubblegum. And Jake's just like, yeah, dude, of course you do. Like, I know this. We all know this about you.
Forced pillow talk.
Well, the whole episode is forced conversation, forced hanging. It's honestly, it's kind of creepy how Ice King does this to Finn and Jake. But I think he just doesn't, and we've talked about this before, he doesn't know how to make friends work.
Yeah.
Or how making friends work at all. I mean, shoot, I barely know how to make friends after college anyways. I don't think any of us really know, because no one's around us that's the same age, or at least not to the degree that they always have been in high school and college and all that. And he goes into this weird place where he's it feels like he's hoping with Finn and Jake and with the princesses that they will experience some form of Stockholm syndrome. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Do you not agree? Do you not think so?
Not necessarily. I want to hear your thoughts on it, but okay. I don't think that's necessarily where my mind went with Ice King in this situation.
So you don't think I certainly don't think that's his like goal. I don't think he's like trying to get people to like him kind of fakely or per some sort of a situational, like, I don't know, like hypnotism or whatever. But I do think it just reminded me and Allie of Stockholm Syndrome for some reason when we were watching this, because they are essentially his prisoner for X amount of time. And I was like, maybe they'll eventually like start to like him simply because they're forced to be around him.
it's what he's done with princesses for so long. He's captured them and locked them away, and then been like, "Just give it time, and you'll fall in love with me." Kind of thing.
You don't think that's what he's hoping?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that's his end goal, is to make friends. But I really see it as, and there's a really telling moment in this episode when he dresses up like Finn, and he is down to like minute details, like the backpack and the socks that he draws on with with a Sharpie. And he was like, we need to be better friends. Let's walk a mile in each other's shoes and gain, what does he say? Like gain perspective on each other. Yeah. And so I think I would say it's a growth in Ice King, that he just does it backwards, that he does realize that in order to make friends with Finn and Jake, it is about perspective. It's not all Stockholm Syndrome, but he really should have.
He's just struggling in general.
Yeah,
like and that would have been transition to being good. He's struggling with his identity as like the evil villain of the show.
But I don't even think he identifies himself as an evil villain or evil per se, or I don't even think he identifies himself as annoying Finn and Jake. Just because of his wizard madness, that like
it's certainly post season 1, he's a lot better.
That shrouds his perspective of how people see him, you know. So he's not very introspective, but I think he really wants Jake and Finn to understand where he's at, you know. That he really wants them to get that he's a cool guy and that he is trying hard to make friends. And I think his wizard madness mixed with being kind of ostracized for 1,000 years, both of those two things mixed together is him trying his best to be a good friend. He makes some omelets in the morning, like not very good omelets made with his feet in them. But I don't think he sees that as malicious at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Well, I agree. At the very least, I want to talk about Stockholm Syndrome a little bit, just because it is so fascinating. As we came up with that idea, we did a little bit of research, and Allie kind of already knew a little bit of where that, like the origins of Stockholm Syndrome. And I don't know if you're super aware of it, but
not the origins, no.
I'll fly through it really fast. I mean, so essentially there was a Swedish bank robbery in Stockholm, 1973, where he asked for about the equivalent of $700,000 from a bank and took 4 hostages. He was later joined by his buddy, who was, I think, already in prison and was going to potentially be the getaway driver. And the hostages and their captors stayed there for a week in the bank. While the whole week that they were there, the captors, and I think this was like televised, or at least like very much in the news, like everybody
in the public, arena,
Sweden was aware of it. But the captors were very nice to them. They were on a first name basis. They consoled them when they had bad dreams and put jackets on them when they were cold. So they were like treating their hostages like people, you know, instead of like hostages. And by the end of it, they had created this bond. One of the hostages actually offered to be like their one hostage so they can get away safely. And it was noted that the hostages were more afraid of the cops than they were of their own captors by the end of the week, which is insane to me.
And you could see a little bit of that in this episode when he offers to make omelets, and Jake's like, "Hey, actually, that sounds pretty good." You know, like just that moment. Yeah, I was like, I could see that little trigger moment there where he forgets that he's actually a hostage. You know.
Yeah, and they even I'll wrap it up real fast. They even made the captors surrender to the police in a way that kept them all from being shot. And in the end, they all said that the captors were nice guys and that they visited them. Apparently, they went and visited them in prison, like as just like friends, which is nuts to me that is the origins of Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, it's very much. I always associate it with Beauty and the Beast. You know, that's like the definition of my definition of baseline Stockholm Syndrome.
I think that's fair too. Yeah.
You know, and that one's very obvious. And once you really break down the Beauty and the Beast story, you're like, oh yeah, this is a little messed up. Like something's a little off here. Oh man, but yeah, I related it not in a Stockholm Syndrome way, but especially now that we've been introduced to Lemongrab. It reminds me a little bit of like maybe drawing a parallel between the two characters is that they are not in their nature evil, and they're not in their nature like trying to do bad things, but there is something about their nature where it's just a little like off the spectrum of society. And they're like, why are the way that I do things, the way that I see the world is not accepted by anybody else, and I'm criticized for it, ostracized for it. Go live in your own kingdom. Go, like, nobody wants to be around you. And I think it makes that, concept and Ice King's craziness, his madness, even worse is when he's pushed away by people. And so every time he takes little steps to be close with Finn and Jake and close friends with them, every time that Jake and Finn do show a little bit of empathy in that situation, Ice King, you kind of see him take a step back into reality slowly. That he's for sure not as crazy as he was in season 1. He's for sure trying his best. There's no more like, I'm going to go steal princesses. Like, it seems to be way less aggressive,
I noticed that when he had his crown knocked off of his head at the very end, that's when he goes, okay, fine, I'll like spray y'all with the unfreeze.
Yeah, that his crown's actually off for a second.
His crown is off his head. Yeah, it gets knocked off, I think, by the butterflies. I'm not really sure. I don't recall.
Yeah, well, and I think Finn and Jake learn as soon as you knock his crown off, he can't really like spray you with ice or lock you up within ice prison or whatever. So that's what they usually go for.
I don't know how y'all are doing this, but I'll spray you with the unfreeze spray, and then of course he freezes them, and all the butterflies also are frozen. Poor astral beasts.
Poor astral beasts.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, that was kind of my deep thought around that, and it made me look into like the in depths of like, are you evil and malicious, or are you just like unaware? And I found a little snippet. There's a long article from Psychology Today about evil versus good versus evil, doing evil, being evil. And just a snippet that I thought was really great was that people are often afraid of differences they don't understand. Sometimes prejudice can hide in plain sight, practiced most painfully by the people who are most close to you, who may have no idea that they are perpetuating it or why. But when people become aware or choose to be aware, things change in a profound way. And so I think that stuck out to me because I really do see Ice King in these situations trying his best and it not working. And Finn and Jake are like, no, don't stick your feet in my omelet. No, don't freeze us. This is not the way. That it's this forced awareness on Ice King. And he's really being forced to be aware that, and not being told, hey, we are friends, but you can't freeze us. And that's like, Ice King was not aware that was a bad thing. So each little episode like this is a baby step towards his true self. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. He's got a couple more seasons to get there, and we're here for it.
Just like 6 more seasons to be there.
Yeah, quite a few episodes to be fair. Man, we kind of skipped over. I mentioned him earlier in case anyone was curious who my lovely was. It was Gunter.
Yeah, I figured so. He was my runner-up lovely.
Shoot, dude, I would take black and white photos of Gunter as well. Why not? His body parts, weird.
But I meant to also say,
funny though.
Oh, what? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking. I was just reflecting on the scene where Ice King. I mean, it was kind of a commercial where Ice King is presenting a slideshow of all the photos he's taken of penguin body parts.
Yeah,
and I just love how deep he gets. He's like, "Here I am. Look at me. Accept me." When it's Gunter's eyeball and just a corner of his face staring into the camera. It's so good.
Yeah, no, I took that as a really more deep aspect of this episode. It seemed so funny, and I think the writers were totally ripping on people that call themselves photographers, but it's just like, dude, you're just like taking close up pictures of random stuff and calling it art, But in that moment, he's like, see how Gunter's staring into the camera. He's saying, "Look at me, accept me." I think that's Ice King again being blissfully non-introspective and not realizing that that's what he's saying to Finn and Jake is look at me, accept me. And that this is almost his subconscious way of projecting that feeling is through his penguin photography.
Oh, damn, Ned. All right.
I told you I was going to get real deep on this episode.
One. I like that one. I think that's my favorite deep thought you've had this episode.
Yeah, my mind was definitely running in different directions with this episode. But yeah, that moment when I was like, what is Ice King's goal here?
And what is he really saying?
Yeah, I think maybe when it's more artistic, forms of self-expression are so better expressed when, you can put it on something else or project it with art or music or anything like that. And that's probably what helped Ice King get that out of his mouth is look at me, accept me. But it's all through, a vision of black and white Gunter.
I needed to hear more of what he had to say. We only got to see 2 photos. As silly as that sounds, like it was one of my favorite parts, especially when he talks about, like a little cheese, a little cider. Could be nice.
Cheese, little cider, maybe a veggie plate.
That was it was such a vibe. I was like, man, let's just have a slideshow of photography by Ice King.
Oh, trust me. I feel like if you had gotten more than 3 slides into that one, it would have started to be
a little
creepy.
Yeah. I mean, it already was kind of a little odd, but
and then the funny part of that is black and white photography of penguins, which are already black and white. So, that was kind of the funny part too. But oh man, what did you learn from this episode?
I learned 2 things. Don't use too much foot in your omelets, which I think is a pretty obvious lesson.
Unless you love some sodium, little toe cheese.
Yeah, gross. My other lesson is jerks say hungies when they're hungry. We had Ice King and Ash both say that they were hungies now.
Oh, so I didn't even draw that connection.
Only jerks say that. Yep.
Good call. I guess that was a good callback. And Jake was like, no, I'm hungry.
He goes, Ash gets hungies at 8:00.
Ash get hungies at 8:00. Make me a sandwich. Oh man, my lesson goes on my deeper train is that we got to show a little empathy for the people when you can see that they're trying their best, even if it's annoying you. And really, I have more to say about that, but the wrap up and the easy way to state it is that perspective, I still think, and I know this has been my lesson in a past episode, but that perspective is one of life's hardest things to grasp onto, but it's the most valuable. And it's going to be not only bettering your own self and your own circumstances, but other people. If you gain perspective on other people and make them feel heard and accepted for who they are, then, I mean, literally, it again progresses them. If they annoy you and you accept them and you gain their perspective, then they'll probably stop doing as much annoying stuff because they'll gain perspective on you and going, oh yeah, I guess that is kind of annoying. Maybe I shouldn't do that, So yeah, that was my little lesson.
Well, right on. Let's wrap this up. I think this is okay to be a short episode. It's a good one.
Well, sure. Yeah, 42 minutes still. That was what we thought was long from season 1. So
yeah, true. I don't know how people feel about. We have no metrics to see the length that people typically listen to currently. So I'm just assuming that people don't mind if we go a little bit long. But today we'll go 20 minutes early, and just thank you all for listening and checking out the podcast and all your reviews. Everything that you've done helps us so much. Every time you've shared the podcast, we get awesome organic growth from you sharing the podcast with your friends or on social media. You can hit us up on
free growth.
Yeah, you can hit us up on Instagram at Never Ending Adventure Podcast, TikTok at Never Ending Adventure Cast, Twitter at NEA_podcast. You can email us your thoughts, your opinions on episodes. Let's get that traveler's log back into an episode. Hopefully next week we'll have a little segment. NEA.travelerslog@gmail.com. We are on YouTube. There's still no visual element. One day there will be, surprisingly, maybe. We'll see. Otherwise, happy Tuesday. We'll see y'all next Tuesday. Go out there, watch Star Wars. Watch all the way through Star Wars. I'm still digging it from Kenobi. The last episode was pretty good.
I couldn't wreck that again because I already did it from episode 2. But
no, and I
holy
have too many
shimoly,
issues.
it was so
I don't
great.
know. I got my own opinions about it. It's good, but it's like it could have been way better.
That's everything with Star Wars, though. You know,
I know.
It's
We'll
all
see
everybody's personal. This is what I wanted to happen. Never actually happened. So we all got to live in that
season
universe.
2 goes. If season 2 might revive.
If there's a season 2,
there's got to be a season 2 of Kenobi. Anyway,
I saw a Kathleen Kennedy quote this week that she said, "We never planned for there to be a season 2. We planned for it to be a smaller release." And
Ned, you know what they never planned for? They never planned for any of the episodes of the new Star Wars. They didn't plan any of them.
It's very true.
Kathleen Kennedy, whatever.
They got to do a good job wrapping up Mando real soon. So
yeah, and then also Mando 2, whatever the freaking other one was called,
Boba Fett. No, I think Boba Fett
experience.
didn't. Yeah, I think that was a good limited release, and it was technically Mandalorian 2.8, and it was a season 3 lead-in for Mando. So that's where I think they'll leave Boba Fett at that. They'll bring him back in season 3, but he ain't
go
gonna
play
get too much
Pokemon Go.
more.
Get outside, have fun, enjoy your day. You know, I hope we can be a little bit of an escape during work and just in life and party forever.
And I loved you guys. We loved you guys. You know it.